Today, I want to reveal 25 teachings where God will speak directly to your heart about the revolutionary power of gratitude. Each lesson in this detailed and thorough guide will be another step toward a full, abundant spiritual life deeply connected to the Creator, showing how the simple yet powerful practice of gratitude can reshape your existence and open the doors to a new reality. Throughout this video, you will be inspired to develop a genuinely grateful heart, experiencing the fullness of life in God and the transformative power of gratitude in every aspect of your existence. Prepare to see your spiritual life flourish like never before as you open yourself to the beauty of gratitude and allow it to lead you on a path of deep connection, purpose, and fulfillment in God. Teaching 1: The Discontented Heart. Close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, listen to the sound of your own heartbeat. Now ask yourself, why is it that even when everything seems to be in its right place, there is still an emptiness? Why even in the face of so many blessings does restlessness remain? There is something inside you that is never satisfied, an incessant desire for more, an endless search that no matter how hard you try, never finds rest. Discontentment has become your silent companion, a constant whisper reminding you of what is still lacking, what could be better, what should have been different. But is that voice truly yours, or are you perhaps, without realizing it, nurturing a spirit of murmuring and ingratitude? The murmuring is subtle. It seeps into your thoughts and disguises itself as ambition, a desire for growth or healthy dissatisfaction. But deep down, it is an invisible current that pulls you away from peace. When you find yourself constantly complaining, comparing yourself to others, focusing more on what you lack than what you already have, then know this: murmuring has taken control of you. And ingratitude, oh, that is even more treacherous. It blinds, it steals the ability to see what has already been achieved, to appreciate every small gift in life. An ungrateful heart never finds rest because it is always waiting for something more before it allows itself to feel happiness. Now look around you. What do you have now that one day was your greatest desire? What have you achieved that once seemed impossible? Do you see how dissatisfaction makes everything feel disposable, irrelevant, and insufficient? Your spiritual life suffers from this as well. An unsatisfied heart is a hardened heart, closed off to gratitude, contentment, and true peace. How can you expect something to flourish in soil that is never good enough? So, tell me, how long will you allow dissatisfaction to set the pace of your life? How long will you cling to the shadows of murmuring and ingratitude instead of opening your eyes to the light that already shines around you? Teaching 2: What is gratitude? You talk about gratitude, but do you really understand it? Do you say thank you out of habit, or do you feel that gratitude pulsating within you? Or is gratitude merely an automatic reaction to convenient moments for you? Most people think that gratitude is just a feeling, something that arises naturally when things are going well, when everything aligns, when there's good news, when something you've wanted finally happens. But that's not gratitude, that's convenience. You can't say you're a grateful person if your gratitude only appears when life smiles at you. True gratitude isn't circumstantial. It doesn't depend on what you have or what you receive. Gratitude is a state of consciousness, an internal position that transcends the ups and downs of life. And do you know why this is so difficult for you? Because your mind has been conditioned to believe that something is always missing. You look at what you have and see what's still insufficient. You compare your life to others and feel like you're always at a disadvantage. You spend so much time focused on what you want to achieve that you completely forget what you already have. This is ingratitude, but you refuse to see it. You make excuses. You say you're just striving for the best for yourself, that there's nothing wrong with wanting more. And indeed, there's nothing wrong with wanting to grow, as long as you don't lose the ability to recognize the value of the present moment. So take a good look at your life, right now. No filters, no excuses. Are you grateful for waking up every day? Or would you only realize the importance of that if you were in a hospital bed? Are you grateful for the people around you? Or would you only miss them if you lost them? Are you grateful for the food on your table? Or would you only appreciate it if you were starving? Gratitude is not a fleeting feeling, it's a decision. A conscious choice to see beyond the absences, to value what is present, to find meaning even in difficulties. And what if I told you that the lack of gratitude is destroying your life, corroding your relationships, and keeping you trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction? Would you have the courage to admit it? Think about it, but don't just think, feel. Because true gratitude isn't in the intellect, it's in the heart. Teaching 3. Gratitude in the Bible. Have you ever stopped to think about why the Bible speaks so much about gratitude? Why does God require this from you? Does He need your acknowledgement? Does He feed off your praises? Or is it that gratitude has less to do with God and more to do with your own heart? The truth is that ingratitude hardens the soul. It distances you from God, makes you blind to His mercy and numb to what He has already done for you. You may not realize it, but every time you grumble, every time you complain, you are questioning God's sovereignty. You are silently saying that He hasn't done enough. But if you truly read the Bible, then you know that the greatest men and women of faith were not just faithful. They were not just obedient. They were deeply grateful. And this gratitude didn't arise because their lives were easy. On the contrary, many of them faced trials that would be unbearable for you, yet they maintained a grateful heart. David, chaste, humiliated, betrayed, wrote, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all His benefits." Psalm 103:2. Paul, imprisoned, beaten, rejected, stated, "In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you." 1 Thessalonians 5:18. Job, a man who lost everything, children, wealth, health, did not curse God. On the contrary, he said, "The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Job 1-21. Do you see the pattern? Gratitude has nothing to do with circumstances. It has to do with trust, with acknowledgement, with humility. If you truly trust God, then how can you be ungrateful? How can you question? How can you doubt? A lack of gratitude reveals a rebellious heart, a heart that does not accept God's plans, a heart that wants to control its own life instead of submitting to His will. Maybe that's why your spiritual life is stagnant. You ask for more, but you don't appreciate what you already have. You pray, but you don't recognize the answers. You want growth, but you don't learn even from the simplest lessons. If these words have bothered you up to this point, it may be because you know they are true. But the question is, what are you going to do about it? Will you ignore it and continue living the same way? Or will you finally understand that gratitude is not just a commandment, but a key to fully living what God has for you? Teaching 4, the spiritual benefits of gratitude. If you truly understood the impact of gratitude on your spiritual life, you would never complain again. You would never allow murmuring to take over your mind. You would never look at your life with a dissatisfied and empty gaze. Gratitude is not just an emotional response, it is a tool for transformation. It shapes your character, strengthens your faith, expands your vision, and brings you closer to God. But do you realize this? Or does your spiritual life remain weak, constantly wavering between faith and doubt, between trust and fear? The problem is that many live with a superficial faith. They think that believing in God is enough, but without gratitude, that faith has no roots. It is fragile. It's like a plant that never takes root in the soil. At the first strong wind, it topples over. Now, understand this. Gratitude strengthens your faith because it teaches you to see God in everything. If you train your heart to be thankful, you begin to see God's hand, where before you only saw coincidence. You realize that there are no coincidences, that every detail has been orchestrated. And when you see God in the small details, trusting in Him becomes natural. Gratitude also nurtures your hope. Have you ever noticed how ungrateful people are, often trapped in the past or anxious about the future? They can't find joy in the present because they're always focused on what they've lost or what they still don't have. But those who cultivate gratitude learn to live in the now, and that brings peace. Gratitude also deepens your love for God. The more you give thanks, the closer you become to Him. You realize that everything you have comes from Him, that each breath is a gift, and that every day is a new miracle. And how can you not love a God who sustains you in this way? And it doesn't stop there. Gratitude also transforms your relationships with others. Those who are ungrateful are selfish. They always want more. They never appreciate or acknowledge. But those who learn to be grateful learn to look at others with more compassion, with more generosity. Love for your neighbor grows because gratitude teaches you to see beyond yourself. So tell me, why do you still resist? Why do you insist on living in complaint, anxiety, and dissatisfaction? Gratitude is a choice, and if you don't make it, then you are choosing the opposite path, the path of frustration, emptiness, and spiritual stagnation. Teaching 5. Ingratitude and its bitter fruits. Now stop. Look at your life. How do you feel when you wake up? What fills your thoughts before you sleep? Is your mind at peace or constantly restless? Do you feel complete or always dissatisfied? If anxiety has taken hold of you, if bitterness has become a part of your days, if your mouth is always ready to grumble and complain, then know this: ingratitude has already taken deep root in your heart. You may try to ignore it, but the truth is that ingratitude does not go unnoticed. It seeps in, spreads, and contaminates everything, and the fruits it produces are destructive. Ingratitude breeds anxiety. If you don't trust what God has already done, how can you trust what He will still do? If you don't recognize the blessings you already have, how can you rest in His care? Anxiety stems from a lack of faith. It grows in the minds of those who always think something is missing, who never find rest, and who are never satisfied. Jesus was clear when He said, "Do not be anxious about what you shall eat or drink. Your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things." Matthew 6:31-32. But if you live in a constant state of worry, then your life is a contradiction. You say you believe, but you act as if God is not enough. Ingratitude harms the soul. Ungrateful people are incapable of feeling genuine joy. They look at others and only see what they lack. They build up resentments because they always feel they deserve more. And over time, this dissatisfaction turns into poison. Bitterness is a cancer of the soul. It makes you a difficult person to be around. It causes everything to seem unfair, heavy, and insufficient. And worst of all, it blinds you to the blessings that are still within your reach. The Bible warns about this. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled. Hebrews 12:15. If you feel this bitterness inside you, you need to stop right now and ask yourself, how many good things have I destroyed by not learning to be grateful? Ingratitude leads to complaint. Constant complaining is a clear sign of a sick heart, and God abhors grumbling. Just look at the people of Israel. God delivered them from slavery and performed miracles before their eyes, yet they still complained. The result? They were condemned to wander in the desert until that entire generation perished. And you complained in your tents, saying, "The Lord hates us. So He brought us out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites and to destroy us." Deuteronomy 1. 27. Do you realize the seriousness of this? Complaining not only displeases God, but also distances you from Him. You might be going to church, you might be praying, you might be serving, but if your mouth only knows how to complain, then your heart is already far away. Ingratitude distances you from God. There is no true spirituality without gratitude. An ungrateful heart is a hardened heart, closed off to the presence of God. Gradually, this destroys your spiritual life. If you no longer feel God's presence, if your faith seems weak, if your fellowship is cold, then perhaps it's because ingratitude is suffocating you. Remember, Satan doesn't need to make you deny God to distance you from Him. He just needs to fill your heart with dissatisfaction. So how long will you allow ingratitude to control your life? How long will you continue to reap these bitter fruits? Teaching 6. The poison of complaining. Have you ever stopped to analyze how much you complain? Or has it become so natural that you don't even notice it anymore? Complaining, even if it seems harmless, is a poison. You justify it by saying you're just venting, that you're only expressing your dissatisfaction. But the truth is that every word of complaint, every negative thought, every silent murmur is building a wall between you and God. Complaining is a door to unbelief. You may say you have faith, but if your mouth only knows how to complain, then your faith is superficial. Do you really believe that God is in control of your life? If so, why so much dissatisfaction? Complaining reveals a restless soul, a mind that does not trust, a heart that does not submit to God's will. When you complain, you are ultimately saying, I do not accept what God is doing. I know better than He does. This is what happened with the Israelites in the desert. God fed them with manna, but they wanted meat. God led them, but they wanted to go back to Egypt. How long will this wicked community grumble against me? Numbers 14:27. The result? They died in the desert, because constant complaining blocks your spiritual vision and prevents you from seeing the blessings right in front of you. Complaining makes you blind to what God has already done. You ask for miracles, but have you noticed how many daily miracles God has already performed in your life? You cry out for answers, but have you realized how many times God has already responded, and you ignored it? Complaining makes you focus on what you lack, what hasn't happened, and what hasn't come yet. You become unable to see what you already have, what has already changed, and what has already been achieved. And what if God is just waiting for a grateful heart to release what you've been asking for? Whoever is faithful in a very little thing is also faithful in much. Luke 16:10. If you can't be grateful now, do you think you will be when you have more? Complaining attracts curses into your life. This may be hard to accept, but it's the reality. Complaining opens doors to destruction. The people of Israel not only lost the promised land due to their grumbling, but they also faced severe judgments. In Numbers 11, when they complained, the Lord's fire consumed many of them. In Numbers 21, God sent venomous snakes to punish them. Complaining distances you from blessings and brings you closer to ruin. How many times have you ruined something good because you didn't know how to appreciate it? How many relationships have been destroyed because someone could only complain? How many opportunities were lost because you were too busy whining instead of taking action? God does not condone grumbling. He does not bless those who live in complaint. Do all things without grumbling or disputing. Philippians 2:14. If you want change, then you need to stop complaining. Period. Teaching 7. Opening your eyes to the blessings. Have you ever wondered how many blessings go unnoticed in your life? How many times have you received something from God without realizing it? How many answers have come, but you were too distracted complaining to notice? The truth is simple. You don't recognize the blessings because you're blinded by dissatisfaction. You think your life isn't good enough. You look at what's lacking, but ignore what you already have. You want more, but you don't appreciate what you've already received. What if God has been blessing you, but you're unable to see it? You breathe effortlessly, and that's already a miracle. Think about that for a moment. You woke up today. Your lungs are working. Your heart beats without needing permission. You did nothing to deserve it, but it happens every day. Now imagine someone struggling for every breath in a hospital. Imagine someone who would give anything to live just one day without pain. Do you understand the blessing of simply being alive? Or would you only realize it if you were on the brink of death? You have what many desire reflect. What you have today that you don't appreciate was once someone's dream, maybe even your own. That roof over your head, that food on your table, those clothes on your body, everything is a blessing. Yet to you, it seems like little. Because you focus on those who have more and forget about those who have nothing. The Bible says, having food and clothing, with these we will be content. 1 Timothy 6:8. But you're never satisfied. You always want more. You always think you'll only be happy when you achieve what you don't yet have. What if this mindset is the reason for your emptiness? Blessings come disguised as challenges. You complain about problems, but have you ever considered that many of the difficulties you face today are, in fact, blessings in disguise? The door that closed may have saved you from something worse. The delay may have protected you. The frustration may be shaping your character. The Bible says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Romans 8:28. But do you really believe that? Or do you only accept it when everything goes your way? God is always speaking, but you're not listening. Every detail of your life carries a message from God. The question is, are you listening? The sunrise, the breeze that touches your face, the smile of a child, an unexpected hug, a word of encouragement that comes at just the right moment. These are all signs of God's presence. But you only notice the signs you expect. If it's not how you want it to be, you ignore it. You pray for answers, but when God speaks, you're too busy complaining to listen. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Psalms 118:24. Do you really believe that? Did you recognize today as a blessing, or was it just another day full of complaints? If you want a life full of miracles, you must first learn to see the miracles that are already before you. Because while you don't appreciate the little things, the great things will never come. Lesson 8. Gratitude in the midst of adversity. It's easy to be thankful when everything is going well, when life flows smoothly, when doors open, when desires are fulfilled. But what about when everything goes wrong? What if the setting is one of pain, loss, and uncertainty? Can you still be grateful? The truth is, most people cannot. The first reaction to difficulty is to complain, to lash out, to question. You say you trust God, but at the first moment of trial, your faith dissolves, and your mouth fills with grumbling. But listen closely. True gratitude is measured not in good days, but in the bad days. Adversity is not a punishment, it's preparation. Perhaps you are facing your struggle the wrong way. You see suffering as injustice, an unnecessary burden, a sign that God has abandoned you. But what if that pain was an instrument for your transformation? The Bible never said that the journey would be easy. On the contrary, Jesus warned, "In this world you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world." John 16:33. If you are going through the desert, it's not because God has forgotten you, it's because He is shaping you. He is strengthening you. He is preparing you for something greater. And instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" what if you started asking, "What does God want to teach me through this?" Your shift in perspective can be the key to getting through your trial with faith instead of despair. Being grateful in pain is a sign of spiritual maturity. Spiritual children complain. Immature Christians question. But those who truly know God understand that nothing happens by chance. Paul, imprisoned, beaten, rejected, wrote letters full of gratitude. He grasped something you might still resist accepting. Gratitude does not depend on circumstances, but on trust in God. Here's what he said: "I have learned to be content in any and every situation." Philippians 4:11. Does this mean Paul didn't feel pain? That he didn't suffer? Of course not. But he chose to be grateful despite the pain. He understood that gratitude is not an automatic reaction to good things happening, but a conscious decision to trust God even when nothing makes sense. Can you do that? Or does your faith only exist when things go the way you planned? Your attitude in the trial defines your future. Keep in mind, it's not the difficulty that determines your destiny, but how you react to it. If you choose gratitude, you grow, you mature, you learn, and in due time God will exalt you. But if you choose complaining, you become trapped. You sabotage yourself. You prolong your own desert. The Israelites spent 40 years in the desert because of their complaining. Job, who lost everything, remained faithful, and God restored his life twofold. What do you think happens to those who complain in the midst of trials? Nothing. They stay stuck in the same place, going in circles. But those who learn to be thankful in the midst of pain, those are the ones God honors. Now tell me, how have you reacted to your struggles? Like an immature person who complains, or like a child of God who trusts? Teaching 9. The power of praise and worship. If you claim to be grateful, if you insist that you trust in God, if you declare that you believe in His sovereignty, where is your praise? Where is your worship? Because gratitude that doesn't turn into praise is empty. It's superficial, and often it doesn't truly exist. The way you worship reflects the condition of your heart. If your praise is cold, mechanical, apathetic, that says more about your spiritual life than you might think. Worshipping is not just singing. It's not just raising your hands in church. It's not repeating memorized words. Worship is surrender. It's recognition. It's a heart that understands who God is and responds to that truth. Who is grateful praises, who complains is silent. If you are distant from God, if your faith is weak, if your spiritual life feels empty, ask yourself, when was the last time you truly praised Him? David, in the midst of persecution, wrote, "I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth." Psalm 34:1. He didn't just praise when everything was going well. He praised at all times. Now look at yourself. When you face difficulties, what is your reaction? Do you complain or do you worship? Are you silent or do you exalt the name of God? If your first impulse is to complain, then your heart has not yet learned what true gratitude is. Praise breaks chains. Do you want freedom? Do you want answers? Do you want to truly feel the presence of God? Then praise. Paul and Silas were imprisoned, hurt, shackled, but instead of lamenting, they began to praise God. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. Suddenly there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the jail were shaken. At once all the doors flew open and everyone's chains came loose. Acts 16:25-6. Do you notice what happened? They praised before the miracle. They worshipped before the answer. And then the chains were broken. Now tell me, how many blessings have yet to manifest in your life because you insist on complaining instead of praising? How many doors remain closed because your mouth does not know how to glorify God? Praise liberates, complaining enslaves. Which of these paths are you choosing? When you stop worshiping, you distance yourself from God. If your prayer life is weak, if your communion with God feels distant, if you no longer sense His presence, take note, it may be that you have stopped worshiping Him. Satan knows that when a child of God worships, he becomes stronger. That's why he tries to silence your praise. He fills you with fatigue, distractions, negative thoughts and worries, all to make you stop exalting God. And when you give in, when you allow worship to cool, the consequence is clear: distance from God. But the good news is that there is always time to return. There is always time to open your mouth and declare, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name." Psalm 103:1. Now let me ask you, do you want to continue living this lukewarm, apathetic faith, devoid of strength? Or will you decide today to resume your praise, your worship, your surrender? Teaching 10. Gratitude and inner healing. What is holding you back? What still hurts when you remember? What wounds remain open no matter how much time passes? You think you need a miracle to be healed. But the truth is, often, healing is already available, and you simply refuse to access it. Because healing begins with gratitude. It may seem contradictory, but that's how God works. He doesn't just want to take away your pain. He wants to transform your pain into learning, your loss into growth, and your scars into testimony. But as long as you keep looking back with resentment, wallowing in self-pity, and ruminating over everything that has hurt you, you will never truly be free. And perhaps what your soul needs for restoration is a simple yet powerful decision: to be grateful. Gratitude sets you free from the past. If you live trapped by what has happened, if your mind is always reliving the hurts, the mistakes, and the disappointments, then pay attention. You cannot move forward while you continue to feed what has wounded you. The Bible teaches us, "Brothers, I do not consider that I have made it my own. But one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead." Philippians 3:13. But you are still looking back. You are still carrying burdens that you should have let go of long ago. Gratitude does not mean that what happened was good, but it means you recognize that God can use even your pain for something greater. And until you do this, you will remain a slave to the past. Gratitude heals emotional wounds. Do you know what a lack of gratitude does? It turns you into a bitter person. It makes you someone difficult to be around. You think it's just your way, but deep down, your resistance to gratitude is preventing you from finding peace. Science has already proven that grateful people experience less anxiety, less depression, and less stress. And the Bible stated this long ago: "A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones." Proverbs 17:22. What is drying you up? What is stealing your joy? Is it not your own inability to look at your life with gratitude? God cannot heal a heart that insists on feeding on pain. He has given you the path to freedom, but it is up to you to choose to walk it. Gratitude helps you forgive. If there's one thing that prevents inner healing, it's the lack of forgiveness. You might think that holding on to resentment protects you, but in reality, it only slowly destroys you. Now think about this. How many times has God already forgiven you? How many times has He chosen to look at you with mercy, even knowing all your flaws? And do you think it's fair not to do the same? Gratitude teaches you to forgive, because when you recognize everything God has done for you, you realize you don't have the right to cling to bitterness. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. Colossians 3:13. If you want to be free, you need to forgive. If you want to forgive, you need to learn to be grateful. Now tell me, how long are you going to live shackled to what has already passed? How long are you going to nourish pains that should have been left behind? Today, you have a choice: to continue sinking into self-pity or to start being grateful and allow God to heal your soul. Teaching 11. Cultivating a grateful heart. Gratitude is not a talent. It's not a gift. It's not a present that some receive and others do not. Gratitude is a habit. It's a discipline. It's a daily practice of looking at life and choosing what to see. If you haven't developed this yet, if your first reaction to any situation is to complain, if you spend more time talking about what you lack than recognizing what you have, then you can't be surprised that your life feels so heavy, so exhausting, so purposeless, because your mindset defines your reality. Do you want change? Do you want peace? Do you want to experience a level of intimacy with God that you've never had before? Then start with the essentials. Learn to cultivate a grateful heart, and don't think this will happen overnight. Like any real change, it requires effort, practice, and commitment. Here are some strategies to transform gratitude into a daily habit. Stop feeding your mind with what does not edify. Do you want to learn how to be grateful, but spend your days consuming negative news, comparing your life to others, and complaining about everything? What you take in shapes how you see the world. If your mind is filled with dissatisfaction, discontent, and comparison, how do you expect your heart to overflow with gratitude? Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there is any excellence and if anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. Philippians 4:8. Have you really been thinking about these things? Or is your mind just a garbage dump of emotional and spiritual waste? If you want change, start by cutting out the sources of negativity from your life. Exercise gratitude intentionally. If you're not used to expressing gratitude, your first reaction will never be gratitude. So at first you need to force it. Yes, force it, because your mind hasn't been trained for this yet. Start with the basics. Every day, thank for at least 3 things. Write them down, speak them, pray about them, but don't let it pass you by. And don't just choose obvious things like, I'm alive, I have food, I have a roof over my head. Dig deeper. Learn to see God in the details. Thank for that unexpected conversation that brought you peace. Thank for the problem that taught you something. Thank for that door that closed and saved you from a wrong path. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, until gratitude is no longer an effort, but an automatic response. Stop giving voice to complaining. You say you want to be a grateful person, but your mouth only knows how to complain. So here's a real challenge. Spend an entire day without murmuring. No complaints, not one. And then observe what happens. You'll notice that your brain is addicted to complaining. You'll see how accustomed you are to finding problems everywhere. And that's the first step to change. Do everything without complaining or arguing. Philippians 2:14. Obedience is not optional. If you keep justifying your complaints, know that the problem isn't life. It's your heart. Change your prayers. Your prayers reveal your level of gratitude. If all you do is ask, ask, and ask, then something is wrong. How about starting to pray differently? Before making any requests, be thankful. Before presenting your needs, acknowledge what you have already received. And don't do this out of obligation. Do it because you understand that you are blessed far beyond what you deserve. Devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful. Colossians 4:2. If your prayers are driven by gratitude, your faith will be unshakable. Be grateful even for the challenges. This is what separates the spiritually immature from those who truly trust in God. Ordinary people are only grateful when everything is going well. God's children are grateful even when everything is falling apart, not because they enjoy the pain, but because they know God is working through it all. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Romans 8:28. Either you believe this or you don't. There's no middle ground. If your faith is genuine, then you know that even what hurts you has a purpose. So stop questioning, stop lamenting, be thankful. because God is already at work even if you can't see it yet. Will you continue the same way? Now the decision is in your hands. You can continue living as you always have, complaining, grumbling, lamenting what you lack, feeding anxiety and dissatisfaction. Or you can choose to change your mindset, transform your perspective, and develop a truly grateful heart. It depends on no one but you. So what will it be? Will you keep justifying yourself, or will you take the first step? Teaching 12. The Gratitude Journal. Now tell me, can you remember exactly what God did for you 6 months ago? How about last year? Or does your mind only hold on to what went wrong, the tough days, and the prayers that haven't been answered yet? Ingratitude is often unconscious. It doesn't just stem from complaints, but also from forgetfulness. You may not realize it, but God blesses you all the time, and you simply let it slip by. That's why many live in dissatisfaction. They forget their blessings too quickly, while holding on to their pains for years. If this describes you, it's time to change. It's time to create a memorial of gratitude. And no, this isn't just something symbolic. It's not merely a nice thing to do. It's a genuine tool for transformation. If you want to learn how to live with a truly grateful heart, you need to record your blessings. You need to create a gratitude journal. When you write, you fix it. When you fix it, you remember. Have you ever noticed that you remember the pains more easily than the victories? Do you know why? Because the human brain has a natural bias toward retaining negative experiences. They leave a deeper mark. If you don't record your blessings, they become fleeting. You may feel grateful in the moment, but over time you forget. And when you forget, you revert to complaining. But when you write, something changes. You give permanence to what God has done. On bad days, when it seems like nothing is going right, when your faith is weak, when your mind is full of doubts, just open that journal and remember, God has done, God has cared, God has answered before. And He hasn't changed. If you lived this way, would your faith still waver so much? God always commanded His people to record His wonders. If you think this is a modern concept, just look at the Bible. Every time God did something great, He commanded the people to build memorials, visible markers, concrete records, so they would never forget. See what God told Joshua after parting the Jordan River for the people to cross. Gather 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, so that this will be a sign among you. When your children ask, "What do these stones mean?" you shall say, "The waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord." These stones will be a perpetual memorial for the people of Israel. Joshua 4:6-7. In other words, God wanted the people to see and remember because He knew forgetting leads to ungratefulness, and ungratefulness leads to ruin. Now take a look at your life. Do you have a memorial? Or is everything God has done for you fading from your mind, replaced by new worries? How to create your gratitude journal. This isn't complicated, but it needs to be intentional. Here's how to get started. Choose a notebook, an app, or a note on your phone, something you can easily access. Every day, write down at least 3 blessings from the day. They can be big, a healing, an answered prayer, or small, an unexpected smile, a word that touched your heart. In difficult moments, go back and read. This will reinforce your faith and remind you of what God has already done. Commit to maintaining this practice. In the first few days, it might feel strange, but over time, it will become natural. Does it seem too simple? Then try it out and see for yourself the transformation that happens when you learn to recognize every little detail of God's grace in your life. The truth you need to accept. If you don't learn to remember what God has already done, you will never trust what He will still do. You will continue to waver between faith and doubt. You will keep asking for miracles without realizing you are already living in the midst of them. Now tell me, will you let this opportunity slip by, Or will you finally decide that your gratitude will be real, consistent, and strengthened by the remembrance of the wonders God has already performed? Lesson 13. Expressing gratitude to others. Now stop and think. How many times has someone done something for you and you simply took it for granted? How many times have you received support, kindness, help, but failed to appreciate it? How many times has your mouth opened to ask, but not to thank? You say you want to be a better person. You say you want to grow spiritually. But how can you want to draw closer to God if you don't learn to recognize the value of the people He has placed around you? Ingratitude isn't just about God. It's about how you treat those who walk with you. If you find yourself always expecting more from people, demanding more, charging more, but never recognizing or expressing gratitude, then understand this. Your relationships are deteriorating, and the problem might be you. If you want to change that, keep reading. People are not obligated to help you. This is a common mistake. You get so used to the people around you that you start to think what they do is just part of their role. But what's the truth? No one is obligated to support you. No one has to stand by your side. If someone helps you, if someone cares, if someone gives of themselves, this is not your right. It's a gift. And if you don't recognize that, soon you'll notice these people will begin to distance themselves. The Bible teaches us, encourage one another and build each other up. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Now tell me, when was the last time you truly showed gratitude to someone? Or have you just been expecting more, demanding more, asking for more? Unexpressed. Gratitude is silent ingratitude. You might feel gratitude. You might think, I value this person. But if you never say it or show it, what good does it do? What is not expressed does not exist for the other person. And this applies to everything. Family, friends, spouses, co-workers. You may think they know how much you appreciate them, but the reality is, people need to hear it. They need to feel it. Look around. How many people have supported you during tough times? How many provided emotional, spiritual, or financial support? And how many times have you looked into their eyes and said, "Thank you, you make a difference in my life"? If the answer is almost never, then you already have a reason to change today. Ingratitude destroys relationships. Do you want to know what destroys more relationships than anything else? It's not arguments, it's not betrayal, and it's not misunderstandings. It's a lack of recognition. Marriages crumble because one partner feels invisible. Friendships fade because one side only knows how to receive and never reciprocates. Family ties weaken because no one expresses gratitude for one another. If you don't learn to be thankful, you're gradually eroding all the relationships in your life. And when you realize this, it may be too late. How to truly express gratitude. If you really want to change and start creating a cycle of gratitude around you, here are some practical steps. Say thank you sincerely. Not automatically, but while looking into their eyes with genuine recognition. Demonstrate gratitude through actions. It's not enough to just say it. Show it. Give back. Be present. Stop acting like people are obligated to help you. They are not. Every act of kindness you receive is a gift. Treat it as such. Pray for the people who have helped you. When was the last time you asked God to bless those who supported you during difficult times? Be grateful even for corrections. Those who confront you with love are teaching you. Those who alert you are protecting you. And that deserves recognition too. You still have time to change. If you see yourself in this text, if you've realized that you have been failing to show gratitude, then know, there's still time. Today, take a moment to thank someone, call someone, send a message, say thank you genuinely. Stop waiting for the right moment. The right moment is now. Teaching 14. Gratitude transforms perspective. The way you see the world determines how you live. If your outlook is filled with negativity, complaining, self-pity, and dissatisfaction, then no matter what happens, it will never be enough. There will always be a but. There will always be something to criticize, always a reason to feel frustrated. But if you learn to see life through the lens of gratitude, then everything changes. Because gratitude doesn't change the reality around you, it changes the way you perceive that reality. Now, stop and think. Is your problem really that big, or is your perspective distorted? You have two choices. You can continue nurturing a heavy, pessimistic, and weary outlook, or you can decide to change your perspective and completely transform the way you live. But before you decide, read to the end. What you nourish becomes your truth. If your mind has been trained to see difficulties, that's what you will see in everything. If you spend your days complaining, reinforcing negative thoughts, absorbing bad news, and surrounding yourself with pessimism, then don't expect to wake up with enthusiasm and hope. This isn't cheap spirituality. It's a fact. The Bible has said for centuries, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. Matthew 6:22-23. Now tell me, how are your eyes? How is your vision? Have you been seeing light, or have you been drowning in the darkness that you yourself have nourished? Gratitude teaches you to see opportunity where others see problem. Two people can face the same challenge, but come away from it with completely different results. The difference? The way they viewed the situation. One sees failure, the other sees learning. One sees injustice, the other sees a chance to grow. One sees an end, the other sees a new beginning. And do you know which one moves forward? The one that chooses to see through the lens of gratitude. Paul could have viewed his imprisonment as a punishment. He could have become resentful. He could have wallowed in self-pity. But instead, he wrote letters that strengthened the faith of generations. He knew that life isn't about what happens to you, but about how you choose to perceive what happens. Now think, how many opportunities have you missed because your vision was limited by ingratitude? Gratitude makes you stronger than your circumstances. If you can only be positive when everything is going well, then you have no strength at all. Real change happens when you learn to be grateful despite the chaos. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God. 1 Thessalonians 5:18. Notice that God didn't say give thanks when everything is perfect. He said in everything. Because those who can maintain gratitude even in the storm will never be destroyed by it. Now, look at yourself. Are you driven by circumstances or by the conviction that God is always in control? Do you want to change your life? Change your vision? Do you want to change your vision? Practice gratitude. This isn't an abstract concept. It's practice. Here's a real challenge. Stop complaining for 24 hours, even if you want to, even if you're used to it. Replace every complaint with a thank you. When facing something difficult, instead of asking why, ask, what can I learn from this? Every day, find 3 things to be thankful for, even on the worst days. If you truly do this, you will see your life change, because your life doesn't change when everything around you changes. Your life changes when your perception of it changes, and gratitude is the key to that. Now, do you want to continue living as you always have? Or do you want to finally learn to see life with a perspective that uplifts you rather than drags you down? Teaching 15. Gratitude and prosperity. You say you want to thrive. You want to grow. You want to advance in every area of your life. But now be honest with yourself. Do you really have a grateful heart? Because here's a truth you may not have accepted yet. Prosperity and gratitude go hand in hand. I'm not just talking about money. Prosperity is a state of abundance that manifests in all areas: relationships, health, inner peace, purpose. But if ingratitude dominates your mind, if complaining has become your natural language, then you are blocking your own prosperity. Before asking for more, learn to value what you already have. If your life feels stagnant, if nothing seems to flow, if you feel like something is always missing, then keep reading. You may be overlooking the key that opens the door to true prosperity. Gratitude is the soil where prosperity flourishes. If you plant seeds in barren soil, do you expect them to grow? So let me ask you, why do you expect God to prosper a life full of complaints, dissatisfaction, and discontent? The Bible is clear. Whoever is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and whoever is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. Luke 16:10. If you are not grateful for what you have now, why would God give you more? If you waste your current blessings with ingratitude, why would He entrust you with new blessings? Ingratitude is barren ground. Nothing grows where complaints reign. Now ask yourself, have you treated your current blessings as gifts or as scraps? Grateful people see opportunities where others see scarcity. The way you perceive what you have determines what you attract into your life. Ungrateful people always see lack of money, lack of luck, lack of time, lack of opportunities. They are so obsessed with what they don't have that they are unable to notice what is already in front of them. Have you noticed that some people seem to thrive no matter the difficulties? This isn't luck. This is mindset. Grateful people see possibilities. They take the little they have and multiply it. They don't wait for ideal conditions to take action. They transform what they already possess into something greater. Now think, how many opportunities have you missed because you were focused on what was lacking instead of what was already available? Gratitude attracts resources. Ingratitude pushes them away. Do you know what happens when you are grateful? People want to be around you. Opportunities come your way. Paths open up. Do you know what happens when you just complain? You push all that away. No one wants to invest in, help, or support someone who is perpetually dissatisfied. God doesn't give more to those who don't appreciate the little they have. And the natural world reflects this same law. Those who honor what they have will receive more. Those who disregard it will lose. Have you noticed that ungrateful people live in cycles of loss? It's because ingratitude closes doors. Gratitude opens them. Now look at your life. Are you someone who attracts blessings or someone who repels them? Gratitude generates action. Ingratitude generates stagnation. There is a pattern. Grateful people take action. They work with joy. They seek growth. They create solutions. Ungrateful people become paralyzed. They play the victim. They wait. They become passive in the face of life. If you want prosperity, you need to break free from paralysis, and the only way to do this is by changing your mindset. Gratitude propels you forward because it makes you realize that you already have enough to take the first step. In contrast, ingratitude paralyzes you because it convinces you that something is still missing before you can act. Now be honest. Are you waiting or building? Are you complaining or making the most of what you already have? If you don't learn to be grateful, you're not ready to receive more. If you're reading this and feeling uncomfortable, it may be because deep down you know you have been living in dissatisfaction. But the good news is that this can change. Want to prosper? Start with gratitude. Stop focusing on what's missing. Begin to recognize what you already have. Exercise daily gratitude. Wake up and thank for at least 3 things before doing anything else. Change your speech. Replace complaints with words of appreciation. Use what you already have. Instead of waiting, start now with the resources available. God will not bless you more while you continue to disregard what He has already given you. Now the final question. Will you continue to drown in the scarcity of ingratitude? Or will you choose to change your mindset to unlock the prosperity that God wants to pour into your life? Teaching 16. Overcoming self-sufficiency. Do you really believe you've gotten this far just by your own effort? That it was your intelligence, your dedication, your strength that brought you to this moment? If you think like that, then you are trapped in the worst illusion someone can carry, self-sufficiency. This is a subtle trap. You might even say you believe in God, that you trust Him, that you know without Him you are nothing. But your life proves otherwise, because you act as if you depend only on yourself. You feel anxious, desperate, carrying burdens that were not meant for you to bear. You exhaust yourself trying to solve everything alone and still wonder why your life feels so heavy. The answer is simple. Because you haven't learned to depend on God. And until you learn, you will continue to wear yourself out, remain overwhelmed, and keep fighting battles that were not meant to be won with your own strength. Now, read to the end, because this teaching could be the key shift needed to transform your journey. Self-sufficiency is a sign of disguised pride. You might think your problem is anxiety, excessive responsibility, or worry about the future. But at the root, what holds you back is pride. Yes, pride. Because it is pride that makes you think you can control everything. It's pride to think that you need to solve everything on your own. It's pride to believe that everything depends solely on your effort. Pride is not allowing yourself to rest in the arms of God, and the Bible makes it clear what happens to the proud. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. James 4:6. Now let me ask you, why does your life continue to be stuck? Is it possible that God is resisting your pride disguised as responsibility? The stronger you think you are, the more frail you become. The irony of self-sufficiency is that it weakens you. The more you try to carry everything on your own, the more exhausted you become. The more you insist on solving everything your way, the more frustrations you accumulate. The more you rely on your own strength, the quicker it wears out. But God never intended for you to live this way. Look at what He said. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Now think, if you truly trust in God, why are you still feeling overwhelmed? The answer may be painful but necessary, because you have yet to learn to let go. Gratitude is the key to breaking free from self-sufficiency. If you want to overcome this destructive mindset, you need to learn to be truly grateful. Because gratitude teaches you three essential things. Recognition. You begin to see that everything you have comes from God, not from your own merit. Humility. You realize that you don't need to prove anything to anyone because God is already enough. Surrender. You learn to trust, knowing that God is in control, not you. Paul understood this when he said, I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. Philippians 4:13. But notice, he didn't say, I can do all this because I am strong. He said, I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. And you? Are you living in I can do all this, or in through Him who strengthens me? If you don't learn to depend on God, you will be broken until you do. This is the part that nobody likes to hear. But the truth is that God does not allow His children to remain in the illusion of self-sufficiency for long. If you insist on living in control, He allows you to exhaust yourself. If you refuse to depend on Him, He allows you to face situations that prove you can't do it alone. If you ignore the signs, He pushes you to your limits until you understand, without Him you are nothing. And when that happens, you have two options: to rebel, complain, and continue insisting on your own path. To surrender, recognize your dependence, and finally find rest in Him. Now let me ask you, how long will you fight against God instead of surrendering to Him? The decision is yours. Continue fighting alone, or finally depend on God. If you've made it this far, You know this message was meant for you. Now the choice is in front of you. You can continue living your way, carrying burdens you don't need to bear. Or you can finally give up control, thank Him for everything He has done, and learn to live in dependence on Him. If you want real change, start now. Pray, asking God to remove all pride and self-sufficiency from your heart. Meditate on the Word and see how men of faith were not self-sufficient, but completely dependent on God. Thank Him every day, recognizing that your strength, provision, and life come from Him, not from yourself. Because one thing is certain, God never fails, but your strength does. Now, the final question. Do you want to continue in this cycle of exhaustion, or will you finally surrender to the true strength that comes from God? Teaching. 17. Gratitude generates generosity. Now answer me honestly. What do you do with the blessings you receive? Do you simply consume them, hoarding for yourself? Or do you use them to bless others? Because here is the truth that many ignore. A truly grateful heart does not shut down, it overflows. If the gratitude you feel does not make you more generous, then it is not real. It is just a fleeting feeling, without depth. Because those who understand that everything they have comes from God, who recognize that every resource, every opportunity, every deliverance is an undeserved gift, do not become hoarders, but rather channels. Now read to the end. This could be the missing key to unlocking something greater in your life. Those who are grateful do not hold on, they share. Do you want to know if someone is truly grateful? Look at their generosity. Ungrateful people keep everything to themselves. They live in fear of scarcity. They think they need to hold on to every penny, every favor, every achievement, because they're afraid of losing it. Grateful people know that the source never runs dry. They understand that everything they have came from God, and that if He gave once, He can give again. That's why they are generous. That's why they bless others without fear. And the Bible confirms this. He who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. 2 Corinthians 9:10. Now, take a look at yourself. Are you someone who holds on or shares? Generosity is not about money, it's about mindset. If you think generosity only means donating money, you still haven't grasped what God expects from you. Generosity is a lifestyle. It's giving time, offering support, sharing knowledge, and acting with compassion. And above all, it's living without fear of lack. Because ungrateful people always feel that something is missing, but grateful people always see what they already have to offer. Now stop and think, what have you been holding on to that could be blessing others? The more you hold on, the less you receive. If you refuse to give, to help, to bless, then don't be surprised if your life feels stuck, because the spiritual law is clear. The more you hold on, the less you receive. The more you give, the more God entrusts you. Consider what is written. There are those who give generously and see their riches increase. Others hold back what they should give and fall into poverty. Proverbs 11:24. This is not emotional manipulation. This is a spiritual principle. If God knows that everything He puts in your hand stagnates, why would He give you more? But if He sees that you are a channel, that what He gives you flows to others, then He increases your capacity. Now tell me, have you been a channel or a closed-off container? Generosity is the ultimate proof of true gratitude. There's no point in talking about gratitude if you don't live it out in practice, because those who truly understand what they have received feel a natural desire to give back. And this doesn't mean giving while expecting something in return. It means giving because you know you've already received far more than you deserve. Jesus left us this teaching: freely you received, freely give. Matthew 10:8. Have you been living this? Or does your life still revolve solely around what you can gain? Do you want your life to be abundant? Then stop restricting. Here's the big question. If your life is stuck, if nothing seems to flow, it may be that you've held on to something that you should have let go of. God gives to you so that you can give. God blesses you so that you can bless. God teaches you so that you can teach. If you don't understand this, then you are hindering your own prosperity. Now, the final question: do you want to keep holding on, or will you finally learn to be a channel of blessings? Teaching 18, Gratitude in the Family. Now tell me, what is the atmosphere like inside your home? Is your home a place of peace or tension? Is it a space where people feel loved and valued, or just criticized and pressured? If your house is always charged with negativity, if the conversations are filled with complaints, if people seem distant and indifferent, then perhaps the root of the problem lies in a lack of gratitude. Because gratitude transforms not only individuals, it transforms homes. If there is coldness among you, if the bonds seem weakened, if you feel there are more demands than acknowledgements in your home, then keep reading. Because perhaps what is missing to restore your family isn't more effort, more control, or more rules, but more gratitude. People at home are not invisible. When was the last time you thanked your family for something? And I don't mean a mechanical thank you, but a sincere acknowledgement, because often the problem isn't a lack of love, but a lack of appreciation. The wife who gives her all and never hears, "I see what you do." The husband who works hard and is never recognized. The parents who make sacrifices but only hear criticism. The children who try to please but only receive demands. This cycle of silent ingratitude corrodes homes. It makes people feel invisible, undervalued, unmotivated. And when that happens, hearts grow cold. The house becomes just a place to coexist, not a refuge of love. Now tell me, how many times have you made someone in your family feel invisible without realizing it? Complaints create a toxic environment. If you want to know why your home feels heavy, pay attention to how you talk to each other. If there are more complaints than gratitude, if there are more demands than recognition, then the atmosphere becomes burdensome. The Bible warns us about the power of words. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. Proverbs 18:21. Now tell me, what fruits has your family been reaping? Because if all there is in your home are criticisms, demands, judgments, and comparisons, then don't be surprised if love is slowly dying. But there is a way to change this. Those who learn to be grateful learn to love. If you want to transform your home, start sowing words of gratitude. Thank your spouse for what they do, even for what seems small and routine. Appreciate your parents while you still have time. Show recognition for your children's efforts instead of just pointing out their flaws. Praise before criticizing. Value before demanding. You will see that something will change in the environment, because gratitude has the power to melt hardened hearts. Now tell me, what are you waiting for to get started? Don't wait to lose before you appreciate the biggest mistake of ingratitude is that it makes people only recognize the value of something when they no longer have it. How many only acknowledge the importance of someone after that person has distanced themselves? How many only learn to appreciate family after it has already been shattered? But when that happens, it may be too late. Do not let your home die emotionally because you failed to show gratitude. If you want a home filled with love and harmony, start now. Because the truth is simple. If you do not cultivate gratitude within your family, you are, little by little, killing the bonds that should be the strongest in your life. Now tell me, will you continue to ignore this, or will you take action before it's too late? Teaching 19, Gratitude in the Faith Community. Now tell me, how have you been behaving within your faith community? Are you there just to receive, just to be served, just to meet your own spiritual needs? Or have you been contributing to build up others, strengthen connections, and make the church an environment where the presence of God is manifested in a vibrant way? Because the truth is tough, but it needs to be said. Many want a perfect church, but few are willing to be part of the transformation. And what is the root of this problem? Ingratitude. Do you want to know if you really have a grateful heart? Look at your attitude within the church. If all you do is criticize, complain, and expect things to be your way, then perhaps your heart still hasn't understood what it means to be part of the body of Christ. But if you seek growth, maturity, and a deeper faith, keep reading, because it may be time to change your perspective. A church without gratitude is a divided church. The lack of gratitude corrodes fellowship. Do you know how conflicts within the church begin? With comparison, dissatisfaction, and murmuring. People spend more time judging the leaders than praying for them. They talk more about the mistakes of their brothers and sisters than they encourage their successes. They criticize more than they contribute, and this destroys unity. The Bible teaches us, be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly. Teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. Colossians 3:15-16. Now look at yourself. Have you been a unifying agent or a source of division? Because your attitude within the church reveals the type of Christian you really are. Gratitude makes you serve rather than just demand. Do you know what one of the biggest problems in the church is? People who just want to consume, but never want to serve. They want perfect worship, but never offer to help the music ministry. They want a structured church, but never volunteer for anything. They want uplifting sermons, but never pray for the pastors. They want fellowship, but never approach anyone. Now tell me, how do you expect your church to grow if you do nothing to make it happen? Ungrateful people become spiritually passive. They expect everything from God, everything from the leadership, everything from others, but never move to be part of the solution. But genuine gratitude makes you act. It helps you understand that you were called to serve, not just to be served. And Jesus made this clear for us, for I am among you as one who serves. Luke 22:27. Now tell me, are you serving or just waiting? Those who are grateful pray for the church rather than complaining about it. If you spend more time criticizing your church than praying for it, you are part of the problem. And before you say that the church has flaws, yes, it does. Because it is made up of imperfect people just like you. But the question is, are you contributing to improve things or just pointing out what's wrong? See what the Bible says. Pray continually. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. 1 Thessalonians 5:17-18. Now tell me, when was the last time you prayed for your church, for your pastors, for your fellow believers? Gratitude generates collective spiritual growth. A church filled with gratitude is a church that grows. Because where there is gratitude, love is strengthened. People feel valued. Fellowship becomes real. Brethren help each other instead of judging. The environment is filled with the presence of God, because God dwells in the praise of His people. And this brings us to an essential point. If your church hasn't been growing, maybe it's because there's a lack of gratitude within it. Now look around. Have you been helping your church grow or contributing to its weakness? If you want to see change, be the change. If you want your church to be stronger, start with yourself. Stop criticizing and start interceding. Stop demanding and start serving. Stop complaining and start being grateful, because the church is not a building. The church is you. Now tell me, are you building up or tearing down the community of which you are a part? Lesson 20, Gratitude and Prayer. Now, be honest, how are your prayers? Do you really seek the presence of God, or do you just kneel down to ask for things? Because many think they are praying, but in reality, they are just unloading a list of complaints and demands. God, give me this. God, do that. God, open this door. God, solve this problem. And when something doesn't happen in the expected time, complaining. Now think, what kind of relationship are you building with God if you only know how to ask but never thank? If your prayers lack gratitude, then they are not genuine. What if you feel that your prayers are weak, empty, and unanswered? Perhaps it's because you lack an essential ingredient, gratitude. Now read until the end. This could be the revelation you need to transform your prayer life. Gratitude transforms cold prayers into living prayers. Have you ever felt that your prayers are mechanical? That you pray but feel nothing? That your words seem to bounce off the ceiling? This happens because prayer without gratitude is empty. Look at what the Bible teaches. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Philippians 4:6. Do you see it? Every prayer should be accompanied by gratitude, because when you pray with a thankful heart, something shifts within you. Your faith strengthens, your mind calms. You stop acting like a desperate orphan and start acting like a child who trusts the Father. Now tell me, are your prayers filled with faith and gratitude, or merely with anxiety and demands? If you only know how to ask, your faith is still immature. Imagine a child who only approaches their parent to ask for things. They never say thank you. They never chat out of love. They never show joy for what they've already received. They just keep asking for more and more. Now tell me, how do you think God feels when he looks at your prayer life? Because the truth is this: those who only know how to ask have not yet matured spiritually. Look at Jesus' example. Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me. John 11:41-42. Before asking, he expressed gratitude. Before the miracle occurred, he already demonstrated thankfulness. Now look at your prayers. Do you pray as a confident child or as a dissatisfied beggar? Those who are grateful pray even without receiving yet. If you only express gratitude after something happens, then you haven't grasped what faith truly is. True gratitude precedes the blessing. Look at what Jesus did before multiplying the loaves. And taking the 7 loaves, he gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to his disciples to distribute. Mark 8:6. He gave thanks before the miracle happened. Because those who trust in God give thanks before the answer, before the healing, before the door opens. Now let me ask you, do you have the courage to thank God for what he is going to do? Or do you only know how to express gratitude when you already have it in your hands? Want powerful prayers? Learn to pray with gratitude. If you want to see transformation in your prayer life, start putting gratitude into every word that comes out of your mouth. Before you ask, thank God for what you already have. Before you complain, recognize how many times God has already delivered you. Before you despair, trust and declare gratitude for what God is yet to do. This changes everything, because when you pray with gratitude, your mind aligns with the truth. You stop acting like someone forgotten by God and start seeing yourself as someone supported by his grace every day. Now let me ask you, are you ready to change how you relate to God, or will you continue praying the same way, lacking depth and faith? Prayer without gratitude is religion without life. If your prayers lack gratitude, then they have become just a soulless ritual. And God is not pleased with empty words. He seeks hearts that can recognize his greatness even when they don't yet see the miracle. The Bible says, devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful. Colossians 4:2. Now the final question, how will you pray from today onward? As a child who trusts or as a beggar who doubts? Lesson 21, Overcoming Complaining. Now be honest, how many times have you complained today? And don't try to justify it by saying you're just venting, because complaining is not venting. It's a silent poison that is destroying your mind, your faith, and everything around you. If you want to see real transformation, you need to understand one thing. Complaining is not harmless. It is a spiritual blockade. People who complain all the time are trapped in the same cycle. They ask, don't receive, complain even more, and remain stuck in the same place. But there is a path to freedom. If you want to break this habit and replace complaining with gratitude, keep reading. What you are about to learn could change your life. Complaining delays your life. If your life feels stuck, if nothing seems to move forward, it may be that the problem isn't in your circumstances, but in what comes out of your mouth. The people of Israel were supposed to reach the promised land in just a few months, but do you know how long it actually took them? 40 years. Why? Because instead of trusting, they complained. How long will this wicked community grumble against me? Numbers 14:27. And what happened? All the complainers died in the desert. Now think about it. Are you also going around in circles because your mouth only knows how to complain? The more you complain, the more blind you become to blessings. Complaining not only delays your life, it robs you of the ability to see what God has already done. You get so used to complaining that you simply ignore the blessings you've already received. Now consider, how many times has God saved you? How many doors has He opened? How many things could have gone wrong but didn't? And yet you still complain. The truth is, you don't need more reasons to be grateful. You just need to stop being blind to the ones that already exist. Stop feeding your mind with negativity. Do you want to overcome complaining? Then start by cutting off the sources that feed your grievances. Stop hanging out with negative people. Stop consuming news that only fills you with fear and anger. Stop focusing on what you lack and start seeing what you already have. The Bible teaches us, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, think about such things. Philippians 4:8. Now tell me, what has been occupying your mind? Things that uplift you or that pull you deeper into complaining? Train your mouth to speak gratitude instead of complaint. If you want to overcome complaining, you need to train your speech. Here's a practical challenge. Go an entire day without complaining. When you feel the urge to grumble, replace it with a word of thanks. For example, instead of saying, "I'm tired of this job," say, "I'm grateful to have a job." Instead of saying, "This house is a mess," say, "I'm grateful to have a home." Instead of saying, "Nothing goes right for me," say, "If I'm alive, it's because God still has something to do in me." If you do this every day, your mind will begin to change. Gratitude gives you access to more. Complaining blocks you now. Pay attention to this. God does not bless those who complain. If He sees you don't appreciate what you already have, why would He give you more? Jesus showed us this when He healed the 10 lepers. Only one came back to thank Him, and Jesus said, "Weren't there 10 who were cleansed? Where are the other 9? Luke 17:17. The only one who expressed gratitude was not only healed, but was saved. Now tell me, how many blessings have you missed because your mouth only knows how to complain? The decision is yours. Keep complaining or finally be free. If you want to see real change, you need to choose. You can keep complaining and going in circles. Or you can decide that starting today, your mouth will be a channel of gratitude, not of complaint. If you want real change, start now. Pray and ask God to free you from complaining. Meditate on the Word and see how God lifts up those who are grateful. Practice gratitude daily, replacing each complaint with a thank you. Now, the final question. Will you continue wasting time in the desert, or will you move forward to what God has for you? Lesson 22. Gratitude as a lifestyle. Now tell me, is your gratitude a fleeting state or a way of life? Do you only remember to be thankful when something good happens? Or is your gratitude a constant attitude, regardless of the circumstances? The truth is that many say they are grateful, but they live like ungrateful people. They complain more than they appreciate. They feel frustrated more than they trust. They ask for more than they acknowledge. If your gratitude depends on what you have, how you feel, or what happens around you, then it hasn't taken root within you yet. And as long as gratitude is not a daily habit, you will never experience the fullness that God wants to pour out over your life. Now read to the end, because this may be the last piece that's missing for your complete transformation. Gratitude needs to be practiced every day. Gratitude cannot be an isolated event in your life. It needs to be a daily commitment. Just as you eat every day and take care of your body daily, your soul also needs to be nourished with gratitude. See what's written. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. On Thessalonians 5:18. It doesn't say once in a while or when everything goes right. It says in everything. That means gratitude is not an emotion. It's a decision. Now tell me, have you decided to be thankful every day or only when something pleases you? Your perspective on life changes when you decide to be grateful. If you truly turn gratitude into a habit, something powerful will happen. Your perception of life will change. Before you saw problems, now you see opportunities to learn. Before, you focused on what you lacked. Now you recognize everything you already have. Before you felt wronged. Now you see God's grace in every detail. Ungrateful people find reasons to complain in everything. Grateful people find reasons to praise even in difficulties. Now, look at your life. Do you see blessings or just problems? Gratitude changes your internal and external atmosphere. If your life feels heavy, if your mind is always overloaded, if your heart is never at peace, it may be because you lack gratitude. The Bible teaches a fundamental principle. A joyful heart makes a cheerful face, but by sorrow of heart, the spirit is crushed. Proverbs 15:13. This means that what you carry inside reflects in how you live outside. Grateful people radiate lightness. Ungrateful people carry a constant weight. Now tell me, have you been bringing light wherever you go? Or have you just been spreading negativity? Those who live in gratitude experience true fulfillment. If you learn to make gratitude a way of life, your journey will never be the same. You will become a stronger, more balanced, more confident person. After all, when you trust that God takes care of everything, there is no room for despair. The psalmist understood this and wrote, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits." Psalms 103:2. Now tell me, have you been remembering God's benefits, or have you focused only on what has yet to happen? The final decision. Will you continue as you are, or will you choose a life of gratitude? Gratitude is not a special gift. It is a daily exercise. Now you have two options. Continue living as you always have, oscillating between moments of gratitude and long periods of complaining and dissatisfaction. Or finally decide that starting today, your life will be marked by constant gratitude, regardless of the circumstances. If you want real change, start now. Upon waking, before reaching for your phone, thank for 3 things. When facing something difficult, instead of complaining, ask, "What can I learn from this?" And at the end of each day, acknowledge at least one reason you saw God's hand at work. Because the truth is this: life remains the same, but those who choose to be grateful experience everything in a completely different way. Now tell me, are you going to remain trapped in the cycle of ingratitude, or will you finally make gratitude your way of life? Teaching 23. Transformation Testimonials. Now let me ask you, do you believe that gratitude can transform a life? Or do you secretly think that it's just another motivational concept, something nice to say, but in practice doesn't make much of a difference? If you still have doubts, keep reading, because what you're about to see are not theories. They are real stories. Stories of ordinary people, just like you, who decided to change their mindset and saw their lives completely transformed. And maybe, by the end of this teaching, you'll realize that what's missing in your life is not more luck, more money, or more opportunities, but more gratitude. Read until the end. The man who was on the edge of suicide but was saved by gratitude. Carlos, a fictitious name, was a man who, on the outside, seemed to have it all. A good job, a comfortable home, a family. But on the inside, he was broken. Dissatisfaction was eating away at his soul. He felt trapped in a meaningless routine. Every day was a burden, and nothing seemed sufficient. Depression took over, debts piled up, family problems intensified, until he decided to end it all. But that night, something happened. As he picked up the phone to write a farewell message, he received an unexpected audio message from a friend. The audio spoke about the importance of gratitude, seeing life with different eyes, and starting to thank before asking. It hit him like a shock. At that moment, for the first time in years, he knelt down and gave thanks. He asked for nothing. He complained about nothing. He simply thanked for being alive, for having a second chance, for realizing that there was still time to change. From that day on, he made a decision. He would stop living in complaint and begin to see the hidden blessings in each day. And what happened? Your mind began to grow stronger. Depression lost its grip. The challenges didn't vanish, but now he knew how to cope with them differently. His financial life started to align. His relationships were restored. Today, he says with conviction, "Gratitude saved my life." Now look at yourself. Could it be that what's dragging you down is exactly this mindset of dissatisfaction that prevents you from seeing what you already have? The woman who found healing through gratitude, Mariana, a fictitious name, received a devastating diagnosis, a rare and aggressive illness. The prognosis was not encouraging. The doctors said that the chances of recovery were minimal. Despair set in. But instead of succumbing to fear, she made a radical decision. She would spend her days giving thanks. With every appointment, every test, every treatment session, she chose to be grateful for something. She thanked for the air she breathed. She thanked for the hands of the doctors who cared for her. She thanked for the moments she could still experience. She thanked for the strength that God gave her each day. And something remarkable happened. Her tests began to show unexpected improvements. The doctors were baffled by her recovery, and against all odds, she was healed. Today, Mariana says, "Gratitude not only changed my mind, it changed my health, it changed my destiny." Now let me ask you, what if you started to thank more than you complain? Wouldn't your life begin to change too? The marriage saved by gratitude. Ricardo and Anna, fictitious names, were on the verge of separation. The years of living together had made them indifferent to each other. Communication was cold. Everything seemed to spark conflict. Then, during a counseling session, they received a challenge. For 30 days, instead of criticizing each other, they should thank one another for something every day. Even without the desire to do so, they tried. In the beginning, it was difficult. The coldness was still there. But little by little, something began to change. They started to notice small things they had previously ignored. The hardness of the heart began to give way. The connection was being restored. The love that seemed dead was resurrected. Today, they understand that gratitude was the key that prevented them from losing each other. Now, look at your relationships. Could it be that what's missing is not more love, but more recognition, more appreciation, more gratitude? The woman who moved from scarcity to prosperity with a simple change, Carla, a fictitious name, always lived complaining about her financial situation. Nothing seemed to go right. Money was never enough. There was always a new problem to pay for. She worked hard but lived in scarcity. Then one day she heard a simple teaching. Be faithful in the little. If you don't learn to be grateful for what you already have, you will never receive more. Those words kept ringing in her mind. So she decided to change her approach. Instead of complaining about her salary, she began to be thankful for it. Instead of grumbling about the bills, she started to give thanks for having a roof, food, and clothes. Instead of focusing on what was lacking, she began to appreciate every small provision from God. And then something incredible happened. New opportunities emerged. Her finances started to organize themselves. Doors that had never opened began to swing wide. And today, she lives with a level of abundance that once seemed impossible. Now let me ask you, what if your scarcity isn't a matter of money, but of mindset? What if the next story is yours? What do all these stories have in common? These people did not change their circumstances from the outside in. They changed from the inside out. Gratitude didn't create magical miracles, but it changed the way they dealt with life, and that opened the door for the supernatural to happen. Now look at your own story. What's missing for transformation to take place? Because the truth is this: God has already done great things in your life. You just need to start seeing it. The final question is, are you going to wait for something drastic to happen before you learn to be grateful? Or will you decide now that your life will never again be dominated by ingratitude? Teaching 24. Gratitude and true joy. Now tell me, are you truly happy? Or do you just have moments of happiness? Have you noticed how some people seem to have it all? Money, success, recognition. But inside, they live with an emptiness that nothing fills. And have you seen others who, despite not having much, carry a peace and joy that makes no sense to the world? The difference between these two types of people isn't in what they possess, but in how they see life. Gratitude is not just a beautiful habit, it's the secret to true joy. And if you haven't found that joy yet, it might be because you've been looking in the wrong places. Now read on until the end, because this could be the missing key for you to experience a real and profound transformation. If your joy depends on circumstances, then it is fragile. Now be honest, what defines your mood? If your day is good, you feel good. If something goes wrong, your peace disappears. If things go the way you want, you feel happy. If not, frustration sets in. But now think, is this true joy or just unstable happiness? Because true joy doesn't depend on what happens around you, but on what happens within. And the Bible teaches us this. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say, rejoice. Philippians 4:4. Now tell me, is your joy steadfast, or does any contrary wind suffice to knock it down? Those who are ungrateful never find true joy. Ingratitude prevents you from being happy. Simple as that. Because ungrateful people are never satisfied. There's always something missing. There's always an excuse not to be completely okay. If they gain something good, they think it should have come sooner. When they achieve something, they quickly focus on the next goal without appreciating what they've already accomplished. When things go wrong, they spend more time complaining than trying to find a purpose in it. What happens? They become trapped in a cycle of eternal dissatisfaction. The Bible warns us, a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. Proverbs 17:22. Now think, if your joy isn't constant yet, could it be that your ingratitude has dried up your soul? Gratitude helps you find joy, even in the little things. Want to know a secret? The happiest people aren't those who have more, but those who can see the beauty in what they already have. They don't need grand events to feel joy. They find joy in the simple fact of being alive. They don't wait for life to be perfect to give thanks. They are thankful even when things don't go as planned. They don't waste precious moments complaining. They live in the present with genuine gratitude. And Jesus taught us this when he said, "Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow." Matthew 6:34. In other words, stop conditioning your joy on something that hasn't happened yet. Now look at your life. How many moments of happiness have you missed because you were focused on what you lacked instead of appreciating what you have? Do you want to have a joy that doesn't shake? Then stop complaining and start thanking. Here's a challenge for you. Spend 24 hours without complaining about anything at all, but go further. Not only eliminate complaints, replace each one with a word of gratitude. When you think of something bad, give thanks for something good. When you want to grumble, choose to praise God. When things go differently than you wanted, trust that there is a purpose and be grateful anyway. If you do this, you will feel the power of gratitude over your mind and heart. Now tell me, do you have the courage to try, or will you continue feeding dissatisfaction? Full joy only exists in the presence of God. Finally, here is the most important truth of all. No amount of gratitude will be enough if you don't have a real relationship with God, because true joy doesn't come from things, people, or success. It comes from His presence. The psalmist has already revealed this secret to us. In your presence is fullness of joy. Psalm 16:11. If you're still feeling empty, if your joy is not yet complete, it may be because you're trying to fill it with the wrong things. The answer has always been in God. Now let me ask you, are you going to continue living a fragile and fleeting joy, or are you going to choose the full joy that only exists in a grateful heart connected to God? Teaching 25. Overflowing with gratitude. Now that you've made it this far, I ask you, what is going to change in your life from now on? Because if all you've done is read these words, feel a momentary impact, and then go back to your routine of complaints, dissatisfaction, and frustration, then you've wasted this journey. But if you truly understood the depth of gratitude, then something needs to change today. Because gratitude is not just a nice concept, it's an internal revolution. It's a change so powerful that it not only transforms your life, but also transforms those around you. And the final question you need to answer is this: are you just going to feel gratitude, or are you going to overflow it? If you really want to live a life that makes a difference, keep reading, because what comes next is the conclusion of a journey and the beginning of something much greater. If your gratitude does not impact other people, then it is still too small. True gratitude cannot be contained. It changes your outlook, your posture, your tone of voice, your actions. It makes your presence different, because wherever you go, the atmosphere changes, and the Bible teaches us this clearly. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:16. Now tell me, have your acts of gratitude been visible, or has your faith been lived only in your mind? If no one can see God's gratitude flowing through you, then it hasn't matured enough. The gratitude you express may be the answer someone needs. Have you ever imagined how many people around you are desperate, overwhelmed, exhausted? People who feel like nothing is worth the effort, who have lost hope, who complain because they were never taught to see life through the lens of gratitude. Now imagine if they encountered someone who lives differently, someone who, instead of grumbling, finds reasons to give thanks, someone who, instead of lamenting, knows how to trust, someone who carries a peace that makes no sense to the world. Have you realized that this person could be you? And this is not about speeches, it's about example. The people around you need to see what it means to live with a grateful heart, and God wants to use you for that. Now tell me, are you willing to be an instrument that brings light and hope to others? Exhibit gratitude in everything you do. Here's the big truth. Gratitude isn't limited to words. It needs to be visible in every area of your life. In the way you treat your family, show appreciation, thank more, criticize less. In how you work, be excellent. Do everything as an act of praise to God. In your relationships, be a person who inspires, who lifts others up, who recognizes the worth of people. In how you face challenges, trust God and demonstrate that faith is greater than fear. And all of this needs to happen daily. Because true gratitude is not a moment, it's a lifestyle. Now tell me, what is your life reflecting? In gratitude and heaviness, or lightness and gratitude? Gratitude preps you for greater things. If you want God to take you to a new level, understand this once and for all. Before giving you more, God tests how you treat what you already have. If you haven't learned to thank for the present, why would He give you the future you desire so much? If you don't value the people already by your side, why would He trust you with new connections? If you can't recognize daily provision, why would He multiply your abundance? The answer is simple, He won't. And this is not just theory, it's a spiritual principle. Whoever is faithful in little is also faithful in much. Luke 16:10. Now look at your life. Are you really ready for greater things? Or has your lack of gratitude kept you in the same place? Today is the day your life can take a new turn. Now you have two choices. You can continue living as you always have, complaining, getting frustrated, murmuring, and waiting for something external to change so that you can finally feel satisfied. Or you can decide that starting today, your life will reflect God's gratitude. And if you truly want this transformation, then start now. Thank God, not just with words, but with actions. Be a channel of gratitude in the lives of others. Live each day with a heart overflowing, filled with the presence of God. Because the truth is this: when you choose to live with gratitude, you don't just change your life, you change the world around you. Now tell me, what choice will you make? Will you continue as you are or become someone who overflows with gratitude and impacts lives? We have reached the end of this journey, but the true walk begins now, because gratitude is not just a fleeting feeling, it's a lifestyle that changes everything. If you understand this, you know the choice is yours. To remain stuck in the cycle of dissatisfaction, always waiting for something more to be happy, or to decide that today is the day everything changes. What you have learned here cannot just be another piece of knowledge stored away. It needs to be practiced. Ungrateful people always wait for the next achievement, the next miracle, the next door to open, and only then do they feel complete. And this cycle never ends. But those who choose true gratitude learn to see the blessings before the problems, find joy before the answers, and live in peace, even amidst difficulties. The question is, which of these two groups do you want to belong to? If you want to experience real transformation, start now. Stop focusing on what you lack and start seeing what you already have. Replace every complaint with a word of gratitude. Show gratitude through actions, not just words. Learn to give thanks before the blessing, not just after. You don't need to wait for anything to change your mindset. The decision is in your hands. And this decision doesn't only affect you. When you overflow with gratitude, your life becomes a beacon that lights up those around you. The people around you need to see someone who, instead of murmuring, praises, who instead of complaining, trusts, who instead of despairing, stands firm. The world needs more people like this. Are you willing to be one of them? Now tell me, what is the biggest lesson you have learned on this journey? How can gratitude transform your life? Comment below and share your insights. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with me. Leave your like to spread this message to more people. What will you choose? to stay in the cycle of dissatisfaction, or start overflowing with gratitude and live the transformation that God has for you? Did you know that gratitude can completely change your spiritual life?